Like Clay is a first-person horror adventure game where you search for Tom Kemmer, a man who joined a mysterious cult and then disappeared. Atmosphere. Most of the game is set in a very clean, brightly lit apartment building, and thanks to the music and seeming lack of life, it feels unnatural and sinister. No one answers their door, but the sound of people playing music and chatting can be heard coming from inside the apartments. The strange cleanliness to the place is just very weird to see, and whether it was a deliberate design choice or whether it was just easier to make is kind of unclear, but it really bothers me somehow. Once you start digging into cult territory, it starts to get deeply unsettling. Trespassing into people's apartments to find secret rituals and diary entries about devotion is one thing, but as you progress through the levels of the cult by completing tasks and kissing holy rings, there's a nagging feeling that you've gotten yourself into something that you can't back out of, and some of your actions cannot be undone. Going deeper still leads you to large, ominous underground compounds filled with mysterious shrines and menacing challenges to fatally test the fate of their followers, and of course you have to follow in their footsteps into fire chambers and deadly traps. The game gets more sinister as you delve deeper, and what starts out as an amateurish looking cult ends up being actually in touch with the supernatural. Though sometimes the sound design detracts from the immersion, with its voice acting pulling you out of the moment, the atmosphere manages to uphold a sense of paranoia and dread as you explore the empty apartments and dig into its strange religious world. That's one Harry Mason.
Be in good shape and follow your beloved sword.
Scares. Like Clay makes several attempts at various scares, but it's often a bit hit or miss. In the later game it puts spiders on the walls that jump out and attack you when you get too close, and most of the time they're too small to see when you're moving quickly. It's an effective and unpredictable jump scare to get hurt from seemingly out of nowhere. Like Clay does a good job with objects moving on their own, with things subtly changing position to statues waiting for you around a corner they weren't at before. And then there's the incredibly intense Walk of Shore, which involves travelling through a ring several times as the lights flicker and a giant spider appears to lurk below in the hole waiting to kill you. The spike launcher was creative and totally nerve-wracking as you had to run up a narrow corridor towards a device that launched spikes that killed you instantly, but the game tries a lot of things that don't work as well too. There's a few scripted events, but they're very easy to miss and sometimes aren't very impactful. The labyrinth, which requires you to navigate a narrow maze before the monsters kill you, should have been exhilarating, but due to how easy it was to die, it became a bit annoying instead. The game's biggest downfall is that it doesn't always make it clear why you died or what you need to do to survive, and inflicts death at the drop of a hat, with most areas and events being a one-hit kill. Some of the deaths felt completely unavoidable, and some required a lot of trial and error to succeed unless you used a guide. Like Clay has its moments, but scares is not the strong point of the game. That's still one Harry Mason. Sound design. The exploring music sounds like an electronic warble. It's eerily unsettling and phases in and out a lot. There's an eerie silence, and sometimes unnaturally calm and peaceful piano music plays in certain sections of the game that do nothing to calm the player.
You are a child of Skora, and Shore will never forgive you. May spiders find you and tear you limb from limb.
The action pieces sound very amateurish with an excessive use of MIDI keyboard or something similar. It's a bit immersion breaking for me personally and gives off a low budget vibe, but it's an earnest choice to do it yourself in the age of royalty free music, which I find very admirable. The dialogue is sometimes a bit strange and cheesy, but what really hurts the immersion again is that there's really only one voice actor, and whilst there seems to be multiple characters portrayed, they all have the same accents. And for the more demonic entities, they've used effects to try and cover this up, but unfortunately it doesn't hide the way certain words are pronounced.
Dieter and Daniel, all the doors to our underground facilities are now hidden. Non-members can't see and open any of the doors. Level 1 members can see and open the doors to the chapel. Level 2 members can see and open the door to the Hall of Trials, and so on and so forth.
The directional audio is a bit spotty but otherwise serviceable. You can't fault the dedication of a one-person team creating a game, but it has had a bit of a negative effect on the sound design. Overall, the sound effects and music are unique and stand out in the age of royalty-free music and stock effects, but it does hurt the immersion. That's still one Harry Mason. Gore. Whilst the story had explained that many people had been killed by the cult leaders, there was never any evidence of this, no bloodshed or anything, and it seems a little unnatural. Whilst it's explained also in the diary entries, it would have been more impactful to see the people who didn't make it on their journey towards shore. The closest game comes to gore is when the player is made to poke themselves with a nail to prove their dedication, and that's just the screen turning red. Overall, I felt the game could have benefited from at least some evidence of the people that came before you. That's still one Harry Mason. Story. You travel to a mysterious apartment block to the same room the elusive Tom Kemmer disappeared from to track him down, which leads you deep into the Cult of Shore's territory. The game obviously has heavy religious themes, and its sad and disturbing diary entries are the highlight of the story. As you explore the churches and living areas, you see the progressively more dangerous tasks the followers must undergo, but then read the diary entries where they express their desires to leave, but feel trapped, saying they think they're being stalked or followed, forced to stay in a dangerous cult they no longer believe in. But maybe it's more disturbing to see Tom Kemmer himself refuse to believe them and disagree, saying that they're trying to guide him away from his path to shore, no matter how dangerous that path may be. My only criticism is that sometimes it's a bit convenient hearing answer phone messages that seem to directly tell you how to do things, but otherwise the story is pretty engaging, making the final score 2 out of 5 Harry Masons. The game was designed and created by a single person, and its ambitions were very high. It's made earnestly, and I find that extremely admirable, but it's unfair to discredit it based on the limitations of a one-man team. It's a brilliant accomplishment, but its limitations are what hold back certain elements from being more. It may have gotten a low score, but it's still a great game. Again, I remind you this whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games. If you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I like to point out that whilst I too was tricked by Shaw, I certainly did not scream like a banshee or run away from the computer, and I advise you don't either. There'll be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. And always go check out Bombs in the Middle of the Night. Peace.